Hi, everyone. This is Tim along with Anthony, and this is episode 30 of the Radio MVPs. 30 of them, Anthony. We're going to get into that too a little bit later. We're going to talk about some of the stats that I uncovered, how we have grown since the first podcast. As we're not even a full year into this, but it's going to be a lot of fun getting into that. But we're going to get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Results just came in the last hour, so we're going to have, and of course, congratulations to Jim Thome, who makes it on his first ballot. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, getting almost 98% of the vote. Excuse me, almost 90% of the vote. We'll get into it in a second, but I just want to remind everybody quickly, if you get this download through iTunes, please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. The more ratings and reviews you give, the more others will be able to find us and help us grow Radio MVP. You also can find us on Google Play and Stitcher and any other podcaster out there. And please don't forget to go to our website, radiomvp.com, and give us a like on our Facebook. That is Facebook/Radio MVP. All right. Out of the way, and we can get into the fun part of the day as baseball has announced their 2018 class of Hall of Famers, and in it is a Cleveland Indian, near and dear to everybody's heart, Jim Thome. The four players who qualified through the Baseball Writers Association, Chipper Jones, Vladdy Guerrero, Jim Thome, and Trevor Hoffman. So not a big surprise. I think everyone thought four in. One player on the outside looking in was Edgar Martinez, who had a little over 70% of the vote. Needed 75 to get elected into the Hall of Fame. He came up short again. We're going to get into that a little bit. But more than anything, I'm excited. I'm happy for baseball. And there's some players that were left off the ballot. I don't want to say left off, just didn't qualify this year. A lot of controversy on some of them. We're going to get into that a little bit. It's just, talk about what is a Hall of Famer. I mean, everyone has their own opinion, and let's face it, that's exactly what the Hall of Fame is a combination of numbers and opinions, and your performances in certain games. Let's be honest, and it always has been about those type of things. It's more than just numbers. It's personalities. It's a little of everything. So before I go even more into on my own, let me bring in Anthony. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's fantastic when you look outside and see 30 degrees and snow and ice coming down again to think about and talk about baseball. It's especially great when one of your favorite team's players gets inducted, and what a really good class this year. If you look at the four guys that made it, and just really good players. I mean, I think we all know Chipper Jones and Vladdy Guerrero and Jim Thome, but Trevor Hoffman, I mean, he was a National League version of Mariano Rivera, and he helped carry the Padres to the 99 World Series or World Series in there against the Yankees. I forget what year.
I was going to say, I don't want to forget the other two Hall of Famers that got in on forget exactly what they call it nowadays, but of course that's Jack Morris from the Tigers, and Alan Trammell also went in this year. So it's a big class. Yes, six players. It's great. That's the first thing I want to talk about. I am so thrilled to see a legitimate class for Baseball Hall of Fame. It's been
so long.
They went about 10 years plus, maybe of one, maybe two. 1 year was zero, and then it was the it was the veterans that put in a player that year. It's I know it has to be difficult to get into the Hall of Fame, and I have no problem with a threshold that has to be made. It's great to see an actual class where baseball gets to celebrate its past, its glory, and celebrate these players who the ultimate goal in sports to be a part of a Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's anytime you make the Hall of Fame, and like we said, what really is a Hall of Fame? What defines a Hall of Famer? It's more opinion, and stats combined, but it's really a great honor. And seeing it firsthand with the NFL this year when I went to Canton for their Hall of Fame induction, it's just a special moment for the players and the families and former teammates and coaches that helped them get to this stage. And especially baseball. Baseball's such a grueling sport that people, it's 162 games. And most of these guys, that made the Hall of Fame, year in, year out, they were 150 to 155 a game players. Year in and year out. You just look at their numbers, it's staggering. It's incredible. And playing baseball myself and being around it my whole life, you just sit in awe of these guys when you watch them. I remember watching Vladimir Guerrero when I was a little kid, and it was like he was playing wiffle ball. The ball we pitched at his knees one pitch, or we pitched at his eyes the other pitch, and he would find a way to hit it 375 feet to left field gone. It was incredible.
Guerrero was just the best bad pitch hitter I've seen in baseball. I mean, he ended up with, I think they said 449 home runs, and he batted over basically 300 for his career. No, there was Montreal Expos. That was probably in his prime as a player, and not many people got a chance. Well, I'm going to say, and more than anything, a lot of us never got a chance to see him play because of that reason.
Yep.
When you read it in the box scores, you've seen him on maybe a
baseball night or something.
Yeah, exactly. But you did not see him on a daily basis unless you lived in Montreal. And,
or maybe the Indians playing for 3 games or 2 games a year.
And back then the interleague play was not, very prevalent. I mean, I know it began 20 years ago, so yes, they did play. And I remember him when he came to the American League. Don't get me wrong. I know who he is, and I know what he achieved. There's a guy who was really, I hope he goes in as a Montreal Expo. Put it that way. I think that's the cap he needs to wear. All deserves to cherish in their history in Major League Baseball. And, without question, I honestly do believe he's an Expo, and I hope that's the way he goes in. But, yeah, he's phenomenal. I mean, what Guerrero was able to do with the like I said, he may be the greatest free-swinging player that you're ever going to find. Chipper Jones, maybe the greatest switch-hitting home run hitter
of all time.
Yeah, I mean, what he achieved at third base defensively and what he was for the Atlanta Braves during their amazing run, I think, where they win like 13 straight division titles.
Yeah, 13 or 14 division titles in a row.
Phenomenal. And he was just an anchor there. You just knew every day they were writing in the name. Yeah, Chipper Jones was going to be in the lineup, and there's no question about it. One of my favorite players in baseball. I'm glad to see him get in. One of the good guys in baseball too. Guy that everyone talks about is, of course, Jim Thome, as we led off with. Being Indian fans, played for 8 major league teams along the way, and runs. Just naturally strong man who was able to really understand how to launch a baseball better than most. And, I think he had over almost 1,700 RBIs. I mean, it's just phenomenal what he –
incredible.
Just your prototypical power hitter. And it's just amazing to see. Of course, at the end of his career, he became more of a DH, and I'm glad that didn't hamper him. Yes, he did play first base probably the first 10, either third base or first, the first 10, 12 years of his career. But then
he was a good defensive player when he played until he got hurt.
There's no question about that. And I'm just really, let's face it, he's in there because of how many home runs he hit.
Yes, he did.
To hit over 600 in a major league career is just phenomenal. And there's no question about it. But I'm just thrilled. I mean, I could go on about stories that, we both remember.
Yes.
About Jim Thome's career. But I guess the thing I always remember the most is the home run in the 95 World Series. That
was
one of the game.
Yeah.
Well, it clinched the game, and and it was a game. I remember him, later in an interview talking about it. As they were recapping that season, he goes, "Oh, I went to the plate. I only had one thing in my mind, and that was try to hit a home run." And he achieved that. And
he did.
Unfortunately, that series went to the Braves. His Hall of Fame teammate, his Hall of Famer and Chipper Jones ended up with his one World Series win against the Indians that year in '95. So a terrific class. And then you look at Trevor Hoffman, maybe one of the greatest closers in the game, really cemented his idea of what a closer can be.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be a flamethrower as much as a guy who actually knew how to get people out. Yes, he got strikeouts along the way, but he knew how to get the outs in the ninth inning. And his career with San Diego probably, obviously everyone will remember that. And, I can't see him going anything in but a Padres. So, I mean, that's just the way I see it. Chipper, obviously, there's only one team he played for. That's Atlanta. Exactly. And so it is what it is. I'm happy for that. I love the Hall of Fame in general. I can't wait I think it's July 29th this year.
Yep.
The induction. So I will definitely be seated on my television seat that night, that afternoon, watching that. And if God willing and situation goes up to the Baseball Hall of Fame that year, I wouldn't mind going to Cooperstown, but I'm not sure I will.
Yeah.
I never have.
It's a long drive, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's not even that. It's just, you have to plan for something like that. And you have to have the time to do it.
It's so tough to plan that far in advance. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is. But I mean, if there's one scenario where it's worth going, I think this year's
it.
With this class, it's just phenomenal. I mean, you even got Jack Morris going in. I said, Alan Trammell, you got Trevor Hoffman. This is a great class.
Very good.
Phenomenal.
Class.
I'm really
I'm
thrilled.
Class.
This is what it's about. But Anthony, what do you consider a Hall of Famer, and what are the qualifications you're looking for? If you had a ballot in your hand every year, and I'm not saying I want to know who you would vote for, but what are you looking for if you were going to mark a check mark next to that person's name?
Well, I think also you got to look at the numbers. That's going to be the first thing you look at, but that's not going to be the only thing you look at. I want to say longevity. Now I say that, and my favorite Bronco went in the Hall of Fame this year, and he didn't have a long career. So, I got to think how they impacted the game of baseball. You look down at these guys, and every single one of them, like you were talking about, you could sit there and mark down 2 or 3 games or at bats or, things they did that impacted the game of baseball in a positive way. And I think also you got to look at their postseason numbers. Now Guerrero didn't play on a lot of great teams, being in Montreal, but that's another thing, he made baseball Montreal relevant for the most part. I mean, who's going to watch the Expos?
Well, that 94 team.
Well, they're 94 team. They're really good. They were, the best team in baseball.
I was going to say that was the strike year. That was the strike year.
Yeah,
it's the year that they probably were the best team in baseball, and unfortunately, the strike came along.
I think you also got to look at, did they do it the legal way? I mean, I know that's a huge debate for a whole. That could be a
generational debate,
5 podcast debate for hours, and we don't know if, I mean, all these guys could have taken something throughout their career. I mean, let's be honest, as many creams and as drugs and, as many of those things are out there, and there's so many chemical compounds in these things. These guys are playing 10-plus year careers, 162 games a year. At some point, you're going to take something, not intentionally, that is against, now there are some guys, Roger Clemens and, you know, Barry Bonds and all those guys that did it knowingly. But I heard a debate a couple of days ago on Bonds, and he would have been a Hall of Famer if he didn't take steroids, according to some people. Just the sheer speed and power he had with the Pirates. He was incredible.
Well, he was a Hall of Famer, you know, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we put it this way. Since we're talking about a little bit of that, here's the thing. They weren't the only ones to be involved in performance enhancing drugs. You know, that's not, I'm not condoning what happened. I'm just saying they weren't the only ones. You can look at Roger Clemens, you can look at Barry Bonds, you can look at other names with that, you know, Sammy Sosa, and others who are not in the Hall of Fame right now. They have more than anything is they weren't, it wasn't a select few that were doing it. It was an entire generation of baseball players who were involved in this. And it was a long time coming.
Yeah.
Yes, baseball needed to clean its act up, and they did in the long term. But the truth of the matter is, I don't necessarily, and that you have to put these guys in. Now, there's nothing wrong with telling the story of what happened during that time period. And you know, and those who come clean, like, you know, McGuire has, and others, if they ever get into the Hall of Fame, I honestly, truly believe that you should don't deny what they achieved. Just note what happened during that era. You know, it's kind of like the Black Sox. I mean, we banned the Black Sox forever, and it's not the correct move. You know, Shoeless Joe Jackson is a Hall of Famer and should have been a Hall of Famer, and others. There's nothing wrong with notating what happened and telling the story of that player and that era and what was going on, not just in baseball, but in America and what was going on in the 90s. There were people I knew who wanted to get big and strong and stuff like that. And they did do that. No, they just had physical desire to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, they weren't athletes, but that's what they did. And it was part of I'm just saying it was part of America that we don't necessarily see. Yes. Look, when you're an athlete, and I've said this many times, I don't care what sport you play, opportunity to make the type of money that they do, you're going to take every advantage you can. And some of them crossed the line doing that. Some of them did it to stay the sport that was unregulated at the time. And I understand all that. My point is, I have no problem if you voted for Sammy Sosa, if you voted for Roger Clemens, if you voted for Barry Bonds, I have no problem with that, because what they achieved during their careers, and not the entire career, Ramirez, not the entire career was, you know, performance enhancing drugs. It just wasn't. I know darn well the entire career wasn't. Yes, maybe the majority, I don't know. You know, without them actually telling you their story, I don't think we'll ever know that.
Yeah,
but we can definitely find a way to include these players who have that opportunity. You know, my definition of a Hall of Famer excelled at a high level of what they achieved, what they did for a period of time. Now, a period of time could be 10 years. It could be 20 years. It doesn't have to be longevity. It could be consistency of that. But that brings me to someone like Omar Vizquel. He's to me a Hall of Famer without question for what he has achieved. You know, you can look at all the numbers. They don't tell the entire story. You know, he did have 2,800 hits in his career. You know, he did play for a very long time. He has 11 Gold Gloves, and there was nobody better in my lifetime. And I seen Ozzie Smith play. There was no one better at the game than than Omar Vizquel. He was a game changer. There was no one who could achieve and do what he did. Great player, an amazing defensive player who made amazing acrobatic plays. And yes, he had a few big hits in the playoffs, and that no doubt enhanced his career, in the Hall of Fame balloting. And I'm not taking that away from him, because you have to come up big when the opportunity comes. However, baseball, making the playoffs is the sport in the world to do it. Now that they expanded the playoffs, it's a little bit easier, but you're not to a point where it's absolutely, it's still the hardest sport to make the playoffs in. The NFL, unlike the NBA or NHL, they have the expanded format for the playoffs. Baseball still really does not. Yes, they've evolved into the wild card, and we've seen how that's effective. We see the one game playoff wild card, how that affects a team. And if you're a Pirate fan out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're an Indian fan,
you know what I'm
talking about, because everybody knows what's at stake in a Game 7 situation, a winner takes all one game playoff. And that's what baseball has for if you play 162 games to qualify for a one game playoff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts, but it's this format they've went to, and it's fair. No one wants to be put in that situation if you're a fan or a player or an organization. But that's the format they have. And, it is what it is. And I accept it. And, when the Giants went on to win the World Series a few years ago out of the wild card position.
Yes, they did.
They had to go to Pittsburgh and win. They had to go on the road on 2 series and win those and in the World Series. So, these things, are meant to be. Things like that happen. And I have no problem accepting the results of that.
I think.
But that's to me what a Hall of Famer is can you do it over a condensed period of time at a high level? Sandy Koufax is the perfect example of that. Career, when you get down to it, bottles into about a 7 or 8 year period where he was an absolute dominance.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he retired when he was like 33, 34 years old or something, like 32 years old. He did retire early. The first few years of his career, he was, I don't want to say average, just not at the exceptional level. But when he got to that level, he dominated baseball during his time period. And, I think he has 215 wins in his career, or maybe just less than 200 wins. I have to look that one up. But my point is, dominance is dominance. And it can be for a short period of time if it's done properly. And, if someone's an injury shortens a career, it should not hamper that person's ability to be judged for what type of career he has. Now, if it's only 5 years in Major League Baseball, you're not going to get into the Hall of Fame. 12-year career, I think you have a legitimate argument if you're dominant during 75% of that time. And not every player has been dominant during their entire career who accumulated. If you accumulate over a long period of time, I have no problem with it, because you get 3,000 hits. That's an exclusive club.
Yes, it is.
You need to be in the Hall of Fame. You get 500 home runs.
You need to be in the Hall. Yep,
in the Hall of Fame. You get X amount of stolen bases and on base percentage. Like a Ricky Henderson. And Ricky was an all around ball player. Don't get me wrong, but you have a claim to that thing in baseball. I think baseball has such a unique brand of a Hall of Fame, because players who were dominant for a short period of time that did make it, and who accumulated over a 20-year career, that are Hall of Famers. And it just really depends on the player and what he was able to achieve during his career.
Yeah,
so my definition of Hall of Fame is kind of murky in a way, but I honestly think it just comes down, were you dominant during your time in the game, and did you do enough during your time? And there are fringe players that could be debated about that. And a perfect example is Kurt Schilling.
Yep.
Kurt Schilling was dominant at times, but was he dominant for his entire career?
Nah.
That's right there on the edge. You can make a case for what he did with the Boston Red Sox in the playoffs,
yeah,
and winning the World Series two times there.
And that's a great story.
And what he meant to that club.
Yep.
Absolutely, you can make the case. And I'm
going to say also.
I mean, I don't want to take anything in Philadelphia too.
Yep.
I mean, his career, he had different stops where he was absolutely the ace of the team, or the number 2 guy. And he's an interesting case. And there's other players I want to talk about who have similar numbers that he does. The Hall of Fame. So in my opinion, and I've had this for a while now, if baseball elects, a Kurt Schilling in the Hall of Fame, then you have to go back and put about 3 other people in the Hall of Fame who have very similar numbers.
Yep.
Talk about why he made it and the others didn't. And don't just point to the postseason, because the postseason is such, I don't want to say a crapshoot, but you have to be on the right team. And, and he put leverage. I mean, give Kurt Schilling credit for his career on this level. He used his leverage as a player to make sure he was on teams that could compete for championships.
Yep.
He knew he was going to Arizona for that opportunity. When he left Arizona, he was only going to Boston. There was only, he leveraged himself, and that's fair. I have no problem with him using his leverage to get, and when he turned down the chance to come to the Cleveland Indians when he was with Philadelphia, that was a big shocker because everyone thought he would chase the World Series.
Yeah.
But he made sure he didn't come to Cleveland. He used his leverage, and it is what it is. Part of the game. And there's other players that didn't have the same leverage. They had very similar numbers and had a very sparkling career. And I want to get into that in a little bit, but I want, whatever you want to talk about here for a second, go right ahead.
Yeah, I think, like you were talking about, when you just watch these guys, you knew they were Hall of Famers. And when I was a young kid, and I had the privilege of growing up in the 90s and watching those 90s Indians teams, and you would just watch Vizquel, and you thought, yep, hands down, he's a Hall of Famer. What he did with the glove alone was absolutely incredible. I mean, he would make some of the hardest plays look the most routine. I'll never forget 97, 98, the Indians played one of their last spring training games was against the Akron Arrows at this time, up at Canal Park, as like a fan appreciation. And he played the first 3 or 4 innings. And Vizquel, for every ground ball hit to him, fielded the ball with his glove behind his legs and made the play so routine. It was like he was a magician. And I know we call Ozzie Smith the wizard. It was just wow. And then I don't want to hear, but I saw the Blaze.
Well, let's put it this way: no one used his bare hand as a glove better than Omar Vizquel in baseball history. Simple as that. If you can catch line drives with your bare hand, when you can go into the hole with your bare hand and throw people out, I mean, this is what made him so uniquely special. And are his highlight reel out there. And those who want to check it out will.
I might do it after our podcast.
Here Omar's final numbers were this. He scored 1,445 runs. He had 2,877 hits, and he batted .272 for his career. If you go by the new WAR numbers, it was 45.3. But his career was not a WAR during the WAR career.
No,
that's a new thing in the last 5-7 years that people have talked about. And I get it. A lot of the baseball writers association today are younger, and they look at stuff like that and they take that into consideration. But looking at a career, and I know you can make a case, for him not being a Hall of Famer on those numbers. But if you look at just overall, let's put it this way. He stole 404 bases and was caught only 167 times. Baseball, and it's a forgotten thing today in baseball.
Yep.
So we can make the case for Omar, and Omar got 30% of the vote this year. So I actually think long term, I think he's going to be okay.
Yep.
He may end up being Alan Trammell, being a Veterans Committee person in the Hall of Fame, but I honestly do believe if the writers don't put him in long term, the Veterans Committee will. That's just my opinion.
I agree with that.
I just think that's most likely. And I do believe, he got 37%. He got even more than I thought. He got 30%, 37% of the vote. It's just to double it, a little, and he'll make the Hall of Fame. So as time goes, your numbers grow. And don't ask me why that works that way in baseball Hall of Fame, because your numbers don't change year after year after you retire. But, that's the way it works in baseball, and Trevor Hoffman's a perfect example of that. Last year, he had 74% of the vote. He just missed making the Hall of Fame. Trevor Hoffman gets almost 80% of the vote. So, he increased his vote total by 6%, and his numbers didn't change from last year to this year. So it just shows you that. I guess the biggest controversy people talk about is Curt Schilling. We were talking about it earlier.
Yep.
At 216 votes, 51.2% of the vote. Curt Schilling, by the way, 16 total wins in the major leagues with 146 losses, an ERA of 3.46. Dennis Martinez had 245 wins, 193 losses, and an ERA of 3.7. Orel Hershiser had 204 wins and 150 losses and an ERA of 3.48. I don't see a difference between any of those three players.
I don't either.
And if you want to talk about Hall of Famers, I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
but you better put Orel Hershiser and Dennis Martinez into the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Because you're talking about Hershiser did with the Dodgers in '88. It was just phenomenal. I mean, they don't make the World Series without him. One of the most dominant pitchers of all time. And take away, my fandom for him as a Cleveland Indian. I mean, I was a fan of his when he was a Dodger. But you look at those numbers, it's just, those three players, if you can make a case for Curt Schilling to be in the Hall of Fame, Dennis Martinez and Orel Hershiser also belong in the Hall of Fame with those type of numbers. I don't think there's a difference between those. 3.48 for 3.46 for Schilling. Dennis Martinez, 3.7. And when he has more wins, 245. Hershiser has 204, and Schilling has 216. Is there really that much difference between those three players?
No.
I don't think so. And I don't see how you can absolutely. Yeah. Now, here's a player who probably is going to be a lot like Blyleven. It took him forever to get into the Hall of Fame. Blyleven, I think, had about 284 or 85 wins in his career. So he was just short of that magic number of 300 when he retired. He had 270 wins, 153 losses, and a 3.68 ERA. Mike Mussina had 63.5% of the vote.
I think he's
in the Hall of Fame this year. Oh, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
Now of all the pitchers we just talked about, those four pitchers, there's no question in my mind the most deserving is Mussina.
Yep.
And then the other three are on the same level. Or Kurt Schilling can ever go in, in my opinion, you have to have Dennis Martinez and Oral Hershiser on that. And Mike Mussina, he goes in ahead of time. Matter of fact, I don't even know if Oral Hershiser is still on the ballot. I think he fell off a couple years ago.
He's off, yeah.
Yeah, he is off. And of course, Dennis Martinez is off too.
Yep.
It's nuts. I mean, obviously, that's going to be Veterans Committee. We'll have to correct that. And I'm not sure, how much that will happen. We'll have to just wait and see when and if that does happen. But I look at those players, and in my opinion, those are all Hall of Famers. All five of them that we talked about there. The four pitchers and Hershiser, Schilling, and Mussina obviously is a guaranteed. And then Omar Vizquel, there's another guy on the outside looking in. Fred McGriff, I think is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
long term.
I do too.
He has 9 years left on the ballot. Oh no, this is 9th year on the ballot. Yeah, it was his 9th year. He has 1 year left. He's not going to make it.
Probably not. Nope. That's Veterans Committee.
He only had 23% of the vote. I just don't see it happening.
No, he's not. It's going to be really tough to get 52% in a year.
No, it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. We already know where, when the ones to look for next year are obviously Edgar Martinez, Mike Mussina.
Yep.
Clemens may be on the outside looking in or may make it, depending on how many more votes he gathers that people would be willing to put him in with a PED, controversy to his name. And then, Barry Bonds is the same vein. I think all four of them. Now, Kurt Schilling could make the big jump next year. He had 51%.
Yeah.
He will need basically 100 more votes to get in. I don't know. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
It could happen. But, I look at the Hall of Fame in general, and it's an important part of baseball history. It's an important part of all sports history, in my opinion, because this is how you pass the game along to generations.
Yep.
And, this is what it's all about. And I look at Baseball Hall of Fame. I'm just, I look at it and I'm just glad they did the right thing. And, Chipper Jones and Jim Thome went in on first ballot Hall of Famers. So we didn't have to worry about that.
Nope.
What I'll never get in baseball is how could someone get 97.2% of the vote and not 100% of the vote?
Yeah,
Vladdy Guerrero got he got 93% of the vote, and Jim Thome got
89,
just about 90% of the vote, 89.8. So, it's just about 90% of the vote. I just don't know how you leave off superstars and
there
Hall
are
of
some
Famers
people
off your
that have
ballot.
a weird way of voting. It's just,
it's
like you said, it's an opinion.
It is. What I'll say this for this, they've gotten new members into the voting universe in Baseball Writers Association now, and more are voting. I think, matter of fact, here I seen a stat here. Average ballot for the 2018 election contained 8.46 names. You can have a maximum of 10 names you can name to the Hall of Fame. 50% of the writers used all 10 slots. So they're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, they are. Yep.
For a long time there, we had blank ballot this year. And whoever that person was that put in a blank ballot.
What are you doing?
If I was a member of the Baseball Writers Association of America, I'd kick them out.
I would too. That's just just a slap in the face.
That's more arrogant than anything else.
Yep.
You're absolutely thumbing your nose at the sport that you covered, and you're absolutely thumbing your nose at every player who's ever played the game, not just the potential Hall of Famers that were on that ballot. And I'll say this, like I said, we've got new writers, voting now than in the last 25 years. And here's a stat I didn't recognize, but The Baseball Writers Association has now put in 16 players over the last 5 years. So they're actually making classes again, which is great because there was a time period there. I couldn't explain it to you. They just one player went in.
Yep.
Yeah, they just didn't want to put anybody in. It is what it is. You know, that's one of my favorite sayings. Nothing you can do about it.
It's the wonderful world of sports journalism, I guess.
That's Baseball Hall of Fame for you, but, you know, Hall of Fame in general. And, you know, it's fun. I'm glad. I'm happy for Jim Thome. I'm happy for Vladdy. I'm happy for Chipper. And of course, Trevor Hoffman, too. I think those are all deserving. And Edgar Martinez, he's going to get in. He'll be the first full-time DH.
Yep.
You know, and let me state this. As long as baseball had and 1970 put the DH in, an opportunity to be in the Hall of Fame because he was quote unquote a DH is absolutely insanity.
I agree with that.
It is part of baseball. It's part of baseball. Yep. You may disagree with it and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
that's fine. I accept it. But you know what? It's still part of baseball.
It's a position. He did his job day in and day out.
You can't deny what's going on every day in baseball. And let me say this, too, about the DH. You know, this two-league thing's gone on way too long.
I agree with that.
I almost got rid of it in the 80s. Unfortunately, a little Lang cost that from putting into the National League. Here's what I would do. If I was commissioner of baseball, it would be a really simple thing to do. Change the rule that it is a manager's decision in either league, in any game. So if you have a pitcher you want to hit, you know, and that's what you think is best for your team that day, I have no problem with it.
I agree with that 100%.
And if you don't, if that manager wants to use a DH, that's up to that manager.
I agree with that.
And I think in the end, baseball managers will choose a DH.
Yep.
The starters of the world who will bat. There'll be, you know, the Otanis of the world who will bat. And I have no problem with that. I really don't. But in the end, let's just put it in the hands of a manager and let him make that decision. Just like he makes decisions every day during a baseball game about who pitches and when they pitch and how they pitch and what the lineup looks like and when they get pinched hit for. Put it in the hands of the manager. Let them make that decision or not. And if team A wants to use a DH and team B doesn't, that's their choice. You know, and they can run the game that way. And it's not like you can add the DH once you start the game. It is what it is.
Yeah, once you submit your lineup card, it's in.
Once your lineup card's turned in, that's what you're playing by. And you have to, you know, deal with the rules of how it works. And that's the way I look at it. You know, I just wish baseball would be that simple, but it never is.
Some things are too common sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what it is.
I mean, some things
kind of like make
way too much sense.
You know, and it's kind of like my, you know, I've said this before. I don't know if we said it on the podcast, but I've mentioned it many times before. You know, I'll change subjects real quick about the NFL or just overtime general in football. I love the way high school and college does it. I hate the way the NFL does it. I think it's the worst overtime in sports. NFL did changing the how they do the. First of all, the way it was horrible. The way now it's even worse, and that's hard to do.
Can't believe it's the NFL, right?
Yeah, and you know, look, it's an easy fix. I would if I could. Here it is. It's the 20-40-60 rule. You know, high school, you put the ball at the 20-yard line and you play within, and in the winter, you know how it works.
Yep.
Football. College football starts at the 25. I move it back to the 40-yard line. A little farther. It's a higher level football. Let's make it a little bit more different, more challenging and give offense and defense an opportunity to make plays. In the NFL, I put the ball at your own 40 where you have to go 60 yards for a touchdown, and you have to drive the ball to get a field goal.
Yep.
No punting in the game. And let the best team wins. This way, defense still have a chance to make a play.
Yep.
If they intercept the ball, they return it for a touchdown, and this and that. And if there's no punting in the game, you're flat out just and see how far you can get there. If you can make a touchdown, great. If you don't, kick the field goal. If you go for it, that was the gamble you took.
Yep.
I mean, that's the way I'd fix that. But, that's just my
sometimes it's too easy that way.
Humble opinion. Yeah, it makes too much sense, and I don't think it'll ever happen. And I don't have the ear of anybody in the NFL, so we don't have to worry about that. An idiot anyway, so who cares? But get back into it. Yeah, go ahead.
And the NFL's overtime rule now, granted, Tim Tebow and Demaryius Thomas made it beautiful for me a couple years ago that I loved it.
Which makes no sense. If you score first, the game is over. If you score a touchdown first, the game is over. What? I understand that's the rules. And everyone plays under it, okay? But is that the dumbest freaking rule in the world?
That's like saying, okay,
it's
the first one to make
it's like in first
in the NBA overtime wins the game.
Yeah, it's like I don't get that, in soccer, but it is what it is. I don't watch soccer enough to care. So,
okay, now here's a question for you: do you in golf?
Yeah.
Do you prefer sudden death hole, sudden death, a aggregate 3-hole score, or do you prefer an 18-hole playoff?
Well, I like the U.S. Open's 18-hole playoff because that's just exciting and it's different and it's unique.
I agree.
The British Open does it proper with the four-hole playoff.
Yeah,
because then you have to do it an aggregate over 4 holes and see who does the best. And usually, after 4 holes, it's over.
Yep.
And I have no problem with that. During the actual tour, I have no problem with sudden death. Each hole. Yeah. Now, in the majors, personally, I think of both. I think I like the U.S. Open being uniquely different.
18, yep.
And having the 18-hole playoff. However, the others, I would love to see them all be unified and go with a 4-hole playoff.
I agree with that.
Including the Masters. I mean, I understand the drama of a sudden death playoff, but
hey, you can just make the Masters 12-13, amen corner. And
I think if you're going to play for 4 days and you're tied,
yep,
I think of X amount of holes. During the regular tour, I don't care, honestly.
I don't. Yeah.
No, I mean it's important to that event, but television reasons and others, you can have the sudden death playoff. But for the majors, I would rather see at least a minimum of 4-hole playoff.
Yep.
And of course, the USGA is never going to change. It's always going to stay 18-hole.
I like the 18,
and I have no problem with that. But if I had the magic wand, it would probably be a 4-hole playoff at the U.S. Open, which has always had the 18 playoff. I mean, that's the way I see it. I think that's the best way to do it. And I like the British Open for that reason. I think the Open does it right. They give the golfers who qualify for the playoff an opportunity to do something over 4 holes. This way they can make a comeback, or if they fall off, it's not agonizing as 18 holes. If as we've seen in the past, some of the golfers, wave the wave flag on hole number 11, it out. So, I think 4 holes is for majors is perfect. Leave the way it is, and during the regular tour, sudden death is perfectly fine with me because it's not really that big of a deal.
I love it. I agree wholeheartedly with that.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on, Anthony, in the world of sports, but I don't want to go too far into it tonight. Let's your thoughts on the Hall of Fame one more time, or anything else you want, and we'll kind of wrap this up And we're going to be back on Thursday night, and we're getting into the NFL. By the way, congratulations to the Eagles and congratulations to the Pats.
Yep.
We're going to get into that one. We got time for that. I will say this. I was hoping for anarchy. I was rooting for the Bortles and a foil Super Bowl and on Nick Foles and Blake Bortles Super Bowl. I was absolutely rooting for that for the last all week. It has nothing to be anti-New England or Minnesota. It was purely just I wanted two quarterbacks to have the least ratings and had the theory behind it to make it to the Super Bowl. Got one of them in there, and
yeah.
I all the Twitter accounts and the Facebook accounts that kept saying about Brady being the greatest of all time, the GOAT. I kept saying the new GOAT is Nick Foles. So, get ready. Here comes Nick Foles. I'm still going for chaos. I'm going with the Eagles as a little preview for me, but in the NFL on Thursday. Any thoughts you have here before we wrap it up here, Ann?
Just quick on the NFL. I know it's been utter chaos, a Bortles full Super Bowl, but those two quarterbacks have played really well. I mean, Nick Foles is playing at a high level right now, and Bortles against Pittsburgh looked really good. Against Buffalo, he didn't need to do that much. And against New England in the first three quarters, he was playing phenomenal. But we'll touch on that tomorrow. Just once again, congratulations to my favorite player of all time, Jim Thome. That's now Terrell Davis and Jim Thome, my two favorite players in both sports, go in the Hall of Fame. So congratulations to you. And I remember the 500-foot blast he hit onto Eagle Avenue against Kansas City. And I don't know if Tom Hamilton has still calmed down from that. So congratulations to Jim Thome for a lot of memories, a lot of fun times in the 90s and fun times a couple years ago when we brought him back for that swan song.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. That was a great time. And was it 2011 he made the return to Cleveland? I think it was.
2011. From August on, he was a waiver wire guy, I believe. So
it came from Minnesota. We'll get into that a little later, another time.
Yep.
Recap his career. We can even do that on Thursday. Yep. But the Hall of Fame is here, and he's in it. Chipper, Vatty, and Trevor, and of course Jack Morris and Alan Trammell. Don't want to forget those two also this year. So it's going to be a great time coming this summer for that. But in the same vein, he'll be here sooner than you know.
Yep.
And I want to take a quick shout out to Newcastle basketball as they continue on. We have our next game on Friday night as Newcastle will travel down to Blackhawk. You want to check out that game. It's terrestrial radio. It is News Radio 1200 WKST in Newcastle. You can get it in here at times, so give it a try. Listen on the internet. Go to triblive.com. Click on the HSN, High School Sports Network type thing. You'll find it there. It's hssn.triblive.com. And then you'll see broadcast in the corner. Click on the broadcast. It brings up a calendar. Just click on the calendar, and you'll find the Newcastle list there. You can listen to it live on the internet, or you can download it and listen to it later. So it's a great thing what they do with the Trib Live High School Sports Network. So I just want to give a quick shout out to them and everything they do. And obviously, we will talk to you very soon here. Don't forget, one more time, you get this through iTunes. I hope opportunity to rate, review, and subscribe to us. The more ratings and reviews we get, the faster we can grow Radio MVP. We're going to get into some of the numbers since Anthony and I started this past spring. And you can find us on Google Play and Stitcher and just about anywhere you find podcasts nowadays. So please download, tell your family and friends. Let's help grow this thing. We've been doing a great job this year. We hope to double, triple our size here in the next year. And the only way we can do that is through you, the listeners, telling your friends and family to download it and take a listen and enjoy high school sports, college sports, pro football, baseball, basketball, you name it. We're going to be talking about it, whatever's going on. And unlike sports that you hear on the radio, we're going to get more intelligent and have more fun with it. So, talk about what's going on outside the game in a sense, as we have many times. So one last shout out. I want to shout out to the Youngstown Phantoms. I bought tickets about 10, 12 days ago to them. And I went to see them play Team USA on MLK Day. And in the process, I got 4 tickets to the Harlem Globetrotters, which my sister and brother-in-law with their 2 kids are there tonight watching the Globetrotters. So shout out to them for putting some great entertainment on the ice and on the hard floor this week at the Cavelli Center locally. And was a good time at the hockey game. And I'm sure they're having a great time tonight watching the Harlem Globetrotters. So for Anthony and Canfield, I'm Tim and Boardman. You can catch me on the internet on triblive.com. And, of course, you can find us on Twitter at therealradiomvp.com. And I'm Tim Continenza on on Twitter. And you can find us always on radiomvp.com. Anthony, anywhere you can find you on the social networks?
Just Facebook, my name, and Instagram at ACAP17. I just posted a picture of Jim Thome and some pictures of basketball and such. I just got a text real quick before we get off the air. Jim Thome is overrated. So like you said, some people have their opinion of what a Hall of Famer is. I have my opinion of what an idiot is. So on that note, Tim, take us away.
All right, for Anthony Canfield, I'm Tim and Boardman. We will catch you on Thursday night here on Radio MVP. Have a great night, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.